All right, so welcome to the Lovecraft eZine podcast, and I'm Mike Davis. Our guest today is Laurel Hightower. Hey, Laurel.
Hey, glad to be back.
Yeah, good to see you. You got a new book, Below.
I do.
So
Yeah.
I wanted to get you back on. Why don't we do introductions? I've got Matt and Mike DeBronzo and Rick with us. Bridget won't be here. Pete is going to be late. And I don't know about Melissa or anyone else. So
Melissa's work schedule is crazy.
What's that?
Melissa's work schedule is crazy.
Yeah. Hey, Rick, why don't you start? Introduce yourself.
I'm Rick Lay, writer and pulp magazine collector.
DeBronzo is here today, and he's wearing a nice shirt.
There you go.
I'm mad for the Lovecraft eZine podcast. So,
My name is Mike DeBronzo. I am architect, artist, and Pete Rollick's personal movie programmer for the summer of 2022.
Yeah, this is pretty hilarious. We're going to talk about this after we talk to Laurel. But if you like Mike's t-shirt, you can order a t-shirt. Just go to lovecraftezineswag.com. That's not the only one we have. I've got another one coming from Steve Santiago, and it's going to look like a kind of an old-time radio, because you guys know how I like that. And it'll say Lovecraft eZine podcast above it. And then I've got my friend Trevor Henderson. He's working on a t-shirt for me too, and he did the cover for Below by Laurel Hightower.
He did.
Yeah, he's so talented. He's a nice guy too.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, he's amazing.
yeah, so check that out, guys. And Matt, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi there, I'm Matt. I run the eZine movie night, which we're surveying all kinds of horror films. But the main thing I have today is a really nice prize, a graphic novel called Skies of Fire. It's by Vincenzo Ferriero from Mythopoeic. And the art is really terrific steampunk kind of art with lots of zeppelins and stuff like that. It's a hardcover. So if you want to win this, send an email to ezineprizes@gmail.com and put fire in the subject line. We usually draw a winner in about 6 weeks, and who knows, it could be you.
Yeah, I appreciate you doing the prizes, Matt. And I just want to mention that if you win and you're outside of the United States, we may not be able to send you that particular prize because postage is high. But what I will do, Matt lets me know about these. You know, what I will do is if you have a Kindle, I'll send you a nice book of your choice within reason to your Kindle. And if you don't, I can send something through Amazon to make up for it that I don't have to pay for that postage. So I just want to let you guys know that. And if you won a prize in the last few weeks and you are out of the United States, I'm a little behind, so don't think you were forgotten. So I've got a list I'm working on. So we got Laurel Hightower here, and she's got a new book called Below, and it's her first creature feature, right?
Yeah,
So you got the Mothman on the cover.
I do.
Nice.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's I'm actually prepared this time. Last time I couldn't find a copy of my book, but yeah, and I just like to show it off because Trevor Henderson he did such an amazing job with the cover.
Yeah.
Max Booth, actually, like I hadn't even sent him the manuscript yet. I was working on revisions, and I touched base with him to see if he was interested, and he was like, yeah. And then like a day later, he sends me a version of this, and I'm like, okay, now I have to finish and I have to give it to you because I need that damn cover. I'm like, snatch it up because I need it.
Yeah, he's very talented. He's, for those who don't know, he became pretty well known fairly recently in the last couple of years. He's the Siren Head artist, if that rings a bell. But just Google Trevor Henderson Instagram maybe, and you'll see a lot of his stuff. He's on Twitter, and he's got his own website too, I believe. So yeah. So I guess my first question is, what made you want to write, this particular plot aside, what made you want to write about the Mothman?
I just think he's such a cool element. I think that, that it's one of the ones that seems still so mysterious to me. I mean, technically, I guess all cryptids are to a degree, but it seems like Mothman, there's more to that legend as far as, what it means when he shows up and what his intentions are and things like that. So, I always wanted to include the Mothman in a story and kind of had to find the right story. And it's John Langan.
Oh my God, he is alive.
He's ignoring
Doesn't
us
look
for
like
now, but
he's still connecting to audio.
yeah, okay.
Yeah. I don't know. This might be a video. Well, let's see if he's live.
No, Mike, he cut his hair. He's like Samson. He's lost the power of speech.
And his beard turned gray. What the hell?
No, it's in a ponytail. Thank you very much.
Oh, there you
Oh
go.
my God.
Yeah, that's right.
You know what?
Hey.
Whenever my wife's asked me to cut my hair, she doesn't like my hair long. I'm going to point to you and say, if it's good enough for John Langan, it is good enough for me. Damn it.
I feel there's a fundamental flaw in that reasoning.
Could be. Could be.
Hey,
Well,
Laurel.
Hey, John. Good to see you.
we
You
were just
too.
getting started. So I just asked Laurel a question. Why don't you introduce yourself, John? And we'll keep talking to her.
I'm John Langan, and I assure you, my hair is as long as ever.
The nation is reassured.
The internet is okay. It's all right, everybody. It's okay.
All is well.
All is well. Yes.
When did you first become interested in this legend, Laurel Mothman?
Well, I wish I was one of those cool people who had done like a lot of research or something like that, but it's
Yeah, I'm not one of those
just
cool people either.
No,
But for other reasons.
yeah.
Where's the?
Just
I'm gonna boot him off.
can't reach him. He's all the way over there. And it was actually just the movie was the first time I'd heard it. That was how I learned about the legend, which actually I thought was a really good movie. I feel like it holds up. And it was just sort of an interesting concept to me. And I kind of wish that there'd been more to it, not necessarily in that movie, but just I would have liked to see more media that included that legend. And then a couple of years ago, I picked up John Keel's book and read through the whole thing and was very interested to see how much there was that was sort of outside the generally known, I guess, elements of that, of the legend. A lot of the ambiguity and the other sort of non-people that are, that were involved in all of that phenomena. So I kind of it was something that I wanted to write about. I thought it would be cool to include, but I just kind of had to wait for the right story because I didn't want to just regurgitate, what I'd already read and what had already kind of been put out there. So,
in regards to that movie, The Mothman Prophecies 2002, I think it is, with Richard Gere and Laura Linney. Is that her last name?
mm-hmm.
I think.
Yeah.
I noticed it gets a lot of people don't like that movie for whatever reason, but I always did. I think it's a neat movie and I've rewatched it several times. And I think maybe it's possible anyway, that the people who don't like the movie, they're thinking about the Mothman legend as a whole. If you just watch the movie in itself, and it's a pretty watchable film. I like it a lot. So
yeah, and like it was interesting, because I mentioned to you that I had gone back and watched it for another podcast. So do we still like this? We watched it, because it's a podcast that deals with stuff that it's like kind of nostalgic.
That's a pretty cool idea for a podcast.
Yeah, it's great. I have a lot of fun doing that one. Sean's a good dude.
Sean, who?
He's gonna kill me for not remembering his last name right there. He's one of my good friends. I will have to look that up.
Don't worry, I do that all the time. Like John, for example, I think it's John Smith. I'm not sure.
His problem is he always calls me Langan, so he was just like,
That's true. What is his last name? Damn it! I always call him Langan.
Right.
Oh, well, see, and he just has Sean M. That's why. It's not my fault, Sean. You only gave us your initial anyway. yeah, it's the Do We Still Like This podcast, or So Do We Still Like This podcast. It's really fun.
Okay, well, I really believe in, I'm not a competitive person, so I really believe in promoting other, great
Yeah.
books, writers, podcasts, and everything too. So yeah, go check out that podcast, folks, as long as you don't stop listening to us.
But it was,
Anyway, go on, sorry.
Oh, no, you're good. Hopefully Sean will be pleased with me, even though I couldn't give his last name. So, but yeah, we watched it for that. And, even after having read Keel's book, I feel like it holds up super well. And I can see from a movie making standpoint, from a filmmaking standpoint, like, I don't know how they could have included all the other stuff and kept it within the frame of a contained film.
Yeah.
I feel like from a storytelling standpoint, they kind of had to do it the way that it was. And sometimes I wonder if people are, the more general audiences don't like it because of a certain amount of ambiguity. I don't know. I'm noticing that some people have a real problem with that.
I love it. Paul Tremblay's one that does it really well, just off the top of my head,
Yeah.
It can be done wrong, of course.
Yeah.
And then you feel cheated because there's no payoff. So there's definitely an art to writing a story that ends with ambiguity, but you still feel like you got some kind of payoff.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that book, I have it on Audible too, and it's I like the book, but it's not the most readable book in the world. Did you notice that? Or is it just me?
No, it's not just you. And like, I my vast apologies to anyone who, it's just the ego on that book. It is, and what the heck, I'm a writer, we've all got some ego going on, but like some of the stuff that he would say, it was just very like, I am the master of this subject, as everyone already knows, kind of like things. And I'm like, all right.
Well, hell, he starts the book off talking about himself in the third person.
And how what, all the rabble stole using beards or something. The beard used to mean that you were educated, and now
those
just
damn peasants.
Just like, wow, that's a way to go.
Yeah, that's one way to do it.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting legend, and I think more so because of its ambiguity. So
yeah.
But more specifically, as regards your book, Below, can you give us a spoiler-free synopsis of Below?
Yeah. And once again, I just really like to thank Max Booth for writing the back cover blurb for me, because I suck at that. So it was an amazing service by a fantastic publisher. But Below is just kind of, it follows Addie, who is a horror fan on her way to a convention, recently divorced, and kind of trying to find her own voice and her own path again, having separated from her husband. She ends up in almost having a really bad accident in the snow in the mountains of West Virginia. And she gets help from a trucker who offers to sort of lead her through, block her from the snow, and that kind of thing. And then his truck flies off an overpass, and she has to decide whether to go help him or not, which obviously she does, otherwise it wouldn't be much of a story. And it goes completely to hell from there. So
it's a bit of a catch-22, isn't it? If you're stuck on the road and somebody comes along, you really need their help, but at the same time, is this person gonna cut off my face and then kill me or something? So
yeah. And it's it's one of the things too, like this is definitely not my story, but I included elements of things. And I've said that part of what spawned this was driving to Scares That Care by myself last summer. It was it's like I've been trying to do things that scare me, and I've decided that's actually a really bad idea. Probably my fears are rooted in really good reasons. So it was horrible.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No. Just West Virginia is not it's probably now my least favorite place to drive through.
Well, I'm looking at a paragraph interview you did by Erica Robin, I think it is.
Oh, yeah.
And you mentioned that your solo drive to Scares That Care. that it's a 9-hour drive. You wanted to do something that scared you, and you succeeded. But you said that you felt kind of a sense of vertigo and almost drunk part of the time. So
yeah.
what caused that? Just
it's a really good question, and this is one of these things. Like, this is how I know I'm turning 40 this year, is because I end up talking about my health like a good 70% of the time. Like, it's just one of those really random symptoms that got kicked off by that. And, after it's actually never stopped. I have vertigo pretty much all the time now, but it's visual. So I don't like get sick or anything, but I saw a physical, after I got done with the neurologist, who literally was holding his head when I left. Like, he was just like, I don't know, I think you should just go to physical therapy. And he was like this. And I was like,
that's not what you want from your doctor.
No, it's, but it was nothing like horrible or anything. I did get to have the fun brain scan and all that, because initially they were like, dear God, it's a tumor, so that's a fun week.
Yeah.
But it was just something. And I kind of wonder if it's maybe a COVID thing. I don't know. But my PT said that it is very common for vestibular vertigo to get kicked off by a long car drive, especially through mountains, or a plane ride with the altitude. I don't know. So here I am talking about random health issues.
Well, when you turn 50, you'll start talking about the weather a lot.
So. Oh, good. Okay. That's good for it too.
And I don't know what happens when you hit 100, but I'm sure Langan can fill us in.
We like to talk about the doses of the medications that you're taking. You got that one? Do you have the generic? Oh.
How much does it cost on your plan?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's not. I hear you can just use some crushed aspirin instead of that.
You get it faster.
You said that the anxiety was still kind of with you when you started writing below.
Yeah, it's it's one of those things, and it's like traveling as a woman is, especially by yourself, is a very different prospect. You have to be. I actually did a cross-country drive with my mother when I was 18. We were driving back from California, and we were, driving to get the car and the animals back. And it was year 2000, just after the new year. And the weather was hell, and we had to just keep going further and further and further south. And one of the things that she told me early on was, she was like, you're not allowed to wear makeup on the road. You have to wear your hair in a baseball cap. Don't make eye contact. Don't smile at people. Don't talk to people. And I was fine with that. It's not like I wanted to meet a boyfriend on the road or anything, but one night we stopped at the hotel. She went to get a shower. I went across the street to get our dinner at Denny's. And I left my hair out of my baseball cap, and I had waist length blonde hair. And I had somebody back me into a corner. A guy like actually did the "you got purty hair" line, and just, backed me up into a corner of this Denny's. And this, God love him, this sweet kid who couldn't have been any older than I was, about this big around, he comes and squares up to me. He's like, you guys leave her alone, and they left. And I was like, props to him again for stepping in on that, because that was wonderful, and I didn't know what to do. But it's terrifying, that if you do the wrong thing, well, that was my diatribe anyway. Sorry, that's
no, because
it's a consideration, when you travel.
No, I think it's a really important thing to talk about, actually, Laurel. That women have to do these. First of all, it's just so sad. It's a sad commentary on some men in general, and on humans, especially male humans, that you have to do this sort of thing. Don't wear any makeup, keep your hair in baseball cap and everything. And then, like you said, the one time you don't do it, my wife, I think we talked about this before we started. My wife and son, or might have been with Matt, are going to be driving to visit family this summer. And even with my 20-year-old in the car with my wife, it scares me, quite honestly. It's not because women are less than men or anything like that. It's because they're more targeted than men.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times men forget that women feel this way, and they feel it a lot on most of the time.
And every interaction that you have, in particular, if you have to ask for assistance of any kind, is a leap of faith.
Mhm.
You have to decide whether this person that you are asking for assistance is actually going to help you, or if there's some, ulterior motive. And that was kind of one of the things was, my husband is, he ends up doing a lot of the driving, when we travel together, and I kind of prefer that because he's more comfortable on highways and things like that. And, but I like to be able to do things myself. And so, but it was one of those things, like, I so desperately, with this vertigo going on, I was like, I would so hand the keys to like a serial killer right now. Like, whoever could get me to Virginia without me having to get back behind the wheel, it'd be like, whatever, you got a stream of bodies behind you. That's fine. You can throw them in the back. Here's the keys. I'm going to close my eyes. Just let me know when we get there.
Right.
You can have my wallet, whatever you need. And it, it was like, and it's one of these things, it's like, you're right, all these like little elements kind of like swirl around in your head and kind of like become parts of your stories and whatever. And the other weird thing that happened was I was staying in an Airbnb there, and the whole reason I do Airbnb and like, remote check-in is I don't have to talk to people.
Right.
I don't want to see people. Like, I don't want to talk to them. I want to just stay. I'm a very good guest. I'm very clean. You're never going to hear from me. And this guy calls me when I'm halfway there and dealing with this vertigo. And he's like, so here's the thing. I really like to meet people who stay here. So I would like for you. And I was like, absolutely not, under no circumstances, and he's like, well, it's just, I can bring my girlfriend with me if you're uncomfortable. I'm like,
I'm uncomfortable that you called, buddy.
Yeah. Like, why are you even calling me? You can send me a text if you need to and say the house is ready. That's as much interaction as we should have, So
Right.
it was also this thing, like, do I think that he was like, had horrible intentions toward me? No. But was it incredibly clueless of him to think that it was okay to ask a solo female traveler to meet up with a stranger, like, after my long drive? So I made sure and said, I was like, no, I'm a horror writer. There are lots of horror writers that are going to come over and hang out with me tonight. And we're practicing our readings for all our awful stuff that we write. So yeah, I'm not going to be, it's like, anyway, sorry. I feel like I keep getting on these soapbox.
He
I
might not be, but the problem is you can't anticipate what you think may be. You have to anticipate anything that anyone could possibly do, because you just never know.
Yeah, which I feel like lends itself to horror super well. And, it's just a different perspective, it's just a different view of it. And it's like, yeah, if you need help on the side of the road, if you're in trouble, like, do you accept help from this stranger? What kind of danger does it put you in? Kind of a scenario. So it was a good jumping off point for it. Definitely found my foothold on the story for that. Was terrifying drives across the mountains. So,
well, let me open it up to you guys. John, Laurel, do you have any questions for her, or you want to?
Can I just comment real quick?
Yeah,
what you're talking about, that reminds me of something Steve and Mark Rainey told us. He had written a novel. This was 20 years ago, Balak, which was a very good novel. And he had something he wanted to do with one of the characters. And he wasn't quite sure what to do. He was going to have him chase the protagonist. And then he said he went out to like New Year's dinner with his wife and some friends at this kind of mountain pass restaurant in North Carolina, I think. And they had a terrible storm and the roads were all icy.
Ooh.
And he had to drive down the hill, and like there were no lights besides his headlights. And it was driving rain, freezing rain, slick, an inch either way. And he's going off the road and he says, what could possibly make this worse? Oh, I know, being chased. And so that was how his, I don't exactly remember the title of the book, but he wrote a novel based on that experience too. It sounds kind of similar.
I'm so glad I'm not the only one that's been so horrified by a drive that I went and write a horror story about it.
Now, when we moved to Texas, the drive down, my son was a little boy at the time, but about halfway down, moving from Iowa to Texas, we stayed in this hotel that, in retrospect, as soon as we checked in, it was pretty creepy. Like, there was all these woods behind it and everything. And we weren't creeped out because of anything that anyone did. I just kind of looked at the setting and I thought, oh, there's a story prompt there, you know?
Yeah.
So anyway, John, you go ahead.
No, it's funny. I was just thinking, some years ago, my wife and I, for a while, we used to go to these literary conferences in Kentucky. And it was like a sort of a 4 or 5 day swing where one was in Springfield. We drive through West Virginia, check out Springfield, and then go on to Bowling Green. And I remember, like, I was like, oh, here I am in West Virginia, you know? And what I remember was the speed limit was 70 miles an hour. It was up and down like these really steep mountains. And these truckers would, like, you know, you would kind of race them up the mountain and you'd like go get past them right to the top of the mountain. But then on the way on the other side, they would just blow by you. And it was like this game. And then every other valley, there was a huge billboard for either a strip club or like a Pentecostal church. And that
sounds about right. Yeah.
I was like, and we did actually stay one night in West Virginia, and I don't remember much about it. It was like a Days Inn kind of, you know, chain kind of place, except the next morning as we were getting ready to go out, getting ready to drive out of the parking lot, you know, a couple of guys had been hunting and they had something that was like an elk in the back of them. And it wasn't just a deer, but it was something with just these great, enormous horns. So yeah, it seems to me that West Virginia is like a really, like, mountains, I feel like they're like these primordial Gothic kinds of places, you know? And without trying to like not to indulge even in all the sort of whatever Appalachian stereotypes or whatever, just forget all of that. But just, you know, mountains, hollows, secret places. I mean, that's just a natural place for the Mothman to sort of hang out, right? You know, like, I don't know, actually. A few years ago, I was doing some research on Mothman sightings, and there was one in upstate New York in a place called Oneonta, but that sounded a bit more confused and like a possible drug hallucination, because it was like a torso that was floating around, but somehow it was the Mothman and it was chasing people around the inside of a house or something like that. But I don't know. I guess I like what you said about the Mothman being, especially that film, because I like that film too. And what I think is frustrating to people is they're waiting for the moment where, like, the Mothman is revealed to be the cause of what's happening or the savior or something, and instead it's just like, no, who knows what these things are doing here? They're present when bad things happen, and they're like moths, you know, they're sort of drawn to this sort of metaphorical flame, but that's all that we really know about them. So it struck me though that, like, you've dealt previously with really strong, you know, sort of family emotions, and here that is a fantastic, horrifying opening scene of the guy with the grin and the van. Yeah, I was just like, Laurel Hightower, what if you? That's not the Mothman. But I thought that was really, there was something really brilliant about that, you know, the opening of putting something scary, bang, right smack, you know, there it is right in front of you. And you don't have to know a lot about anything. You're driving on the road at night, there's something in the road. And not only that, but there's this weird thing up front there. So like, how did you do that? Like what gave you that? Like, was that there from the beginning, or was that something you came to over time or in revision? Or
it was kind of, it was a little bit of like the launch point for it, kind of, because I, you know, when I was making my initial notes on it, and it was like, okay, I've got this, you know, woman who's going to be driving through and Mothman's going to be involved. This truck's going to, you know, fly off the thing, but how do we get her set up without just doing a bunch of exposition? Because I think the hook is so important, you know, to have something happen in the first like page or two that makes you want to know what's going to happen next. And you know, it's one of these little affairs. So I have really bad astigmatism. So my depth perception is just absolute crap. And it always has been. So driving at night is scary anyway. And I was driving with my brother once at night, and he was getting so annoyed because I would slow down going up these hills and like be like this. And he was like, you know, I'm like, I can't see. He's like, do you just think the road's going to end? And I'm like, I don't know, maybe, you know, so that could happen. I could come up over and there's just nothing. But there was one time, damn it, he wasn't in the car, so I could turn around and say, I told you so. But I was driving and thank God I was in the left lane, because there was, for real, just like a truck stopped right over the top of a hill in the right lane. And it's like, you know, and it's Kentucky, so there's only 2 lanes, you know. And when you talk about like Appalachian stereotypes too, like I can't say anything about West Virginia. I'm in freaking Kentucky. You know, we're cousins. We're right here like this. So a lot of the lines in that film, you know, when she's kind of getting on him for being a little bit of a city guy, where she's like, "Shucks, no, I grew up in a real life house," you know,
Right,
like that
yeah.
kind of stuff. So West Virginia, I'm definitely not knocking you, but
Oh, it's a lovely state. So is
Yeah.
Kentucky, though. I still dream about Kentucky. It's weird.
I mean, I really like living here. I've lived a couple of other places, and I'm planning to go to the Mothman Festival in Point Pleasant in West Virginia in September. So
Oh, really?
wow.
I'm
excited. I feel like it's almost obligatory, you know, like I need to now. I
You
Yeah,
got
have
to bring
go.
a lot
published
of
the book.
copies of your book, and people will be like, "Did this really happen?" And you'll be like, "Sure, it did."
Maybe.
Go read it and talk to me later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually have
Um,
colleagues, one of whom is sort of obsessed with Mothman, and that was what they did over our most like spring break. They made a pilgrimage to Point Pleasant so they could take a picture of the statue, and one of them could touch its very firm buttocks.
This is what I keep hearing about. Is that Mothman's ass on this statue.
Apparently, it is in
really
itself
stacked.
like it's like supernatural itself. It's like no one is like it's you know.
See, and once you hear that, you have to go see it for yourself. Like there's no choice. You're obligated.
Right.
Well, wow, I didn't know this. I learned a lot on this show.
You should. Yeah. That's every time.
I'm
Now,
going to
thing
change the
is-
title. The
Not only
buttocks
did-
of Mothman.
Not only did I not know this, I did not need to know this.
Oh, you totally need to know this because now you're going
Now
to.
I can't unknow it.
You're going to go Google pictures of that statue later, and then you're like, "Damn, he really does have a fine ass."
I'm gonna send him to you.
Oh my God.
I will send you.
Up
Avengers
pictures of-
Endgame. That's America's ass, sir.
Right. Damn, that is America's ass. Yeah.
It's gonna spawn a sequel. Whatever the sequel to Below would be
Below.
in this
Behind.
context. I'm just glad you brought it up, John, because I was sitting here thinking, like, is it kosher for me to bring up mouth?
Oh, yeah, talk about whatever you
Oh,
want.
absolutely. Yeah. This is at least if I'm here because all the class goes right out.
Yeah, we have no class.
yeah,
here,
yeah.
so. Yeah. Well, you know,
Now,
course,
Bigfoot doesn't really have much of an ass as far as monster asses go. I'm just,
Well,
he's got
You
some
know-
damn big feet, though.
he does.
He
But, you know,
does.
the Loch Ness Monster, I mean, who knows? But Mothman,
I'm looking at a picture of Mothman's ass right
yeah.
now. There's a reason why they're talking about it.
Really?
Why,
Okay.
I'm sorry. Why would you fucking admit that?
Why not? Come on, it's not like we didn't all think about it as soon as it came up. Like,
Look,
what
we're
does
gonna
this look like?
we're gonna print it out. We're gonna pin it up, and we're gonna work out and say my ass will be like that
So
someday.
I will have Mothman's ass someday. Yeah.
Yep.
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Bounce a quarter right off that thing.
Like,
Right. Cryptid asses. That's gonna be the
In the-
next
in the meantime-
anthology.
in the meantime, moving to where you get your ideas.
Yeah, let's show some class. Yeah, where do you get your ideas? It just hit me. What a great question to ask an author, right? You know.
Well, I don't know if you're familiar, but there's a magazine of cryptid pinups actually. So I was flipping through, and there was Mothman's ass
Seriously?
just right there. So
And
that's
your
what I went
husband
for.
came in and your husband was like, "What are you looking at?" And you were like, "It's for a story." And then you had to write the story.
Then
to
I was
justify-
required to write this story.
Right, you put the
obviously.
bass up on the wall and he's like, "Are you sure that's for a story?" And you were like, "Absolutely, honey, totally. Look."
I read it for the
Well,
articles. I promise.
Well, that's perfectly legit. We were talking a couple weeks ago about why YouTube exists and why VHS happened as opposed to beta. It all has to do with sex.
Yeah.
You know, everything. Janet Jackson's wardrobe malfunctioned for like 9/16 of a second. And these guys thought, wish there was a way we could look that up and see it again. That's how a year later YouTube was born. I'm not making this up. This is a true story.
Did that really align with that?
Oh, yeah.
Wow. I did not know
You
that.
can trace the origin of YouTube directly to the Super Bowl that year.
So Janet Jackson, Mothman. Who else
Right.
are you going to exploit around here?
Yeah, how did we get to this topic? I don't know.
Your name's on the list, Carpenter.
But I do think about driving long distances these days, as opposed to say 20 years ago, even. And if you have a cell phone and you have AAA, right off the bat, all kidding aside, there's a lot of worry that goes out the window, because back then something happened. I remember I was driving from Fort Worth to Galveston when I was a kid. I think I was about 20, to meet some friends that went to college there. So it's in the middle of the night. I don't know. I was on some 2-lane road in Texas, like 1 a.m, something like this. And the car that I borrowed from my roommate broke down. And there's just nothing anywhere for miles. I remember, I passed a gas station 2 miles back. So, I couldn't whip out my cell phone and call AAA, right? And I think about that. I basically, in the dark, in the middle of the night, I'm walking back 2 miles to a payphone. And I called my friends and they drove up there and helped me out and got it running. And then we drove down to Galveston. But yeah, there's a reason why some horror writers set things in the 70s and 80s as opposed to today.
Yeah, to get over the cell phone, issue. Well, that's also making me think it's not just a convenience for the drivers, but for the friends of the drivers, right? Because you don't have to leave your phone on anymore in case someone breaks down at 1 o'clock in the morning on a road. You can leave your phone off and they'll be able to call AAA.
Right. I'm not the guy to call anyway. So
I'm not either. My phone is always on silent. So
I have mine on do not disturb 24/7, except for, certain contacts that I've got as starred and they can get through. John Langan, he's going to get there someday. I'm going to add him to the.
So I was going to say, it's obviously not me, because I don't know how many times I've called you and I'm like, Mike, I'm having an existential crisis. Help a brother out.
Well, if you got me, I would have just said, everything, you're doomed. Everything goes to hell. So, yeah.
Which might have helped, Mike, but thanks.
All right.
Anyway.
Well, so who are some of your influences, Laurel, and who are some of the writers and books that you've been reading lately?
So influences, it's interesting because I was thinking about this. I was on a panel a few months ago and people were talking about more like classical influences, I guess, like early. But I feel like the writer, other than like Shirley Jackson, which not just because it's the thing to say, but like reading The Haunting of Hill House, the scene with the, who's holding my hand was absolutely, just a big moment for me of like, I want to do this to somebody. I want to make somebody jump out of their skin with something I write. Right. But I can really point more towards contemporary authors of ways that, and in some ways and I don't know whether it's because I have had an opportunity to speak to some of them or whether it's, just a matter of that's an extra added bonus. But like, I can point and say like, Paul Tremblay actually, hey, this is why I started looking into going for more ambiguous endings, like, and not feeling like I had to tie up everything up in a nice bow. It's like, oh, okay, this really works. Stephen Graham Jones is very influential in the sense that he doesn't tend to write the same things. He pivots quite a bit. And I really like that because I don't like feeling pigeonholed. Crossroads was nothing like Whispers in the Dark. Below is not like any of them. And I've been told a few times, like, wow, I don't think anyone expected you to write a creature feature. What in neither? But I like feeling like it doesn't matter. Right. I like looking at someone like Stephen Graham Jones and saying, yeah, okay, you know what? He doesn't ever write the same thing. Because you do get a little bit of fear. And I have had a couple of comments like, well, this is no Crossroads. And I'm like, I know. Did you want me to just write it again? Because it's already
Someone
there.
Actually said that.
Yeah. Wow. But I mean, it's not, I don't think they meant it
Well,
you know,
sure, yeah.
in a bad way. I think they just preferred crosswords, which was perfectly fine, perfectly fine. But what we're, you know, I didn't want to get pigeonholed into being somebody who just writes shit that makes you cry, right? Like
It
you
is,
know,
it is apples and oranges. You can't compare the two books.
yeah, and I
They're
don't
different.
always want to write, you know, that particular style. I wanted, you know, I wanted to try something different. And so, you know, looking at folks who do that sort of thing, it's encouraging to see, you know, that kind of an example. And really, I mean, I know Haley Piper probably gets tired of me talking about her, but she just her you know, when I talk about people not being okay with ambiguous endings, I was very long that person because I was very literal minded and I really needed things spelled out for me. And so I had a real problem with like horror short stories because typically there's a lot of ambiguity there. But I started learning to see what was possible with that sort of thing. And in reading Haley Piper, like she's such this, like, I don't know, she has this amazing ability to like hold your hand to get you on the path, right? Like it's not so out there that you won't step on the path with her. But then she's going to take you down into the forest and around some curves, and you know you're not going to expect any of it. And I love that because and I don't know if everyone else did this, but sort of before I found indie horror, I felt very like the world was a little bit limited. Like, you know, there's only certain kind of stories to tell and only certain ways to tell them. And that was getting a little bit old. And Haley is one person who has definitely demonstrated to me how big the world is, how many things we can do with horror and the impact that we can have. So yeah, there's my Haley Piper spiel, and she's somewhere wondering why her ears are tingling and why I'm talking about her again. So
Well, you know, in writers, artists, whatever, it's you know, money is nice. You know, I don't have much money. It's nice to have, but it's more about, to me, and sounds like to you, this is what I want to write, you know, and if it, you know, I don't want to look at the market and think, okay, this is where the market's going, and so I'm going to write this story. So, not to put words in your mouth, but
no, and us, I mean, of course, I don't think there's anything wrong with writing to market.
sure.
You know, but and I'm probably not above ever doing it. But
Well,
the
we all like
stories that,
paychecks, right?
oh yes, I love royalties. They're fantastic.
Exactly.
Even though I pretty much only get to plow them right back into like travel for writing and things like that. But you know,
Yeah, you piss it
that's-
away on bills and things like that, right?
absolutely, yeah, yeah. But it, you know, I think there's something cool about being able to, and a big thing for me, like I don't seem to be able to escape, nor do I particularly want to, I guess, putting a somewhat feminist bent on most things that I write. You know, I feel like, I hope that it's not in such a way that it's you know, beating anyone over the head with it or missing the story with it. But to me, it's like I am a woman who writes, and so the stories that I write they're going to be influenced by that and influenced by my experiences in life. And, you know, I like doing it that way, and it's cathartic. And it was kind of a bucket list thing. I had a women's studies class study one of my short stories, do it for a semester. And that was such a huge bucket list item for me. I just thought, you know,
What a shot in the arm. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And to have it be horror as well. Because again, that's something that I feel like more people, I don't, you know, my husband really does not like horror, but it's because it's such a visceral like discomfort for him. Like it's physically uncomfortable for him to watch it. And so I certainly don't.
Any kind of horror or a certain kind of horror?
He does okay with certain things. Like he liked The Changeling. Yeah,
I love that movie.
Yeah. And so he's like, okay with those, anything with a lot of gore or like jump scares, you know, and that kind of stuff. It's just like uncomfortable. Right. So, I mean, you know, I don't want to force horror down everybody's throat, but I do think it would be cool to have, you know, I mean, how many stories did we read in school that were just like so boring? You wanted to just, you know,
yeah, my
school.
wife is an English teacher. I love that you just brought this up because we've talked about it a lot. And I said to her that first of all, she's a phenomenal teacher, and she's not listening, so I don't think she'll ever know I even said this. So, you know, I'm not trying to score points, but she really is. And one of the things that we've talked about is that, you know, a lot of English teachers, they do exactly what you just said. When, you know, when we're supposed to be teaching kids to love reading, you know, not that it's some chore that you need to do, but it's something that you love to do. And a lot of that has to do with the books that you pick for them, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think maybe opening people's eyes to not just believing surface stereotypes about what a genre can offer, you know, and what a writing career would look like even. I think so many students get discouraged from doing anything with the arts because all you hear is, you know, you're not going to make money off that. Like,
Right.
you know, you're never going to break in. You'll never break in. And I can't tell you how many career paths I considered like that you hear that. And it's so daunting, you know? And I'm not saying that everybody should be like, okay, well, I'm going to, you know, go be an actor and I'm not going to bother working. Like, yeah, you're gonna have to work that job. You know, you're gonna have to do something else too. But I just dislike this whole, like, we got to discourage you from it entirely. And I think writing is so great because it's something that, and again, you know, we all know this, it's not, they don't just like, you know, the time to write does not just deliver itself to you. You have to make it work.
Yeah.
But I think it can work for a lot of people because it's always there. You know, and that's another thing that I wish was maybe better understood by students of a certain age is that you don't have to go get an MFA, you know, or you can. And there's just different ways to involve it in your life. And, you know, don't let anyone tell you there's no room for you.
Yeah, exactly. Had another question, but it went right out of my mind. So, anyone else have questions for Laurel while I try and remember that?
You can ask me something really weird and random, not about writing at all.
Yeah. What's your favorite color?
I get this every day from my son. It's purple.
You
Still
do, really?
Yes. And
Why is
sometimes
that?
he gets,
How old is he?
he's 4.
Okay.
And he'll say, "Oh, will you just pick another color?" He wants some variety.
You have one son?
Yeah, I have a 4-year-old and I have a 26-year-old stepson.
And you're like not that much older than him. Let's put it that way.
I'm 39. Yeah. I don't mind to say my age at all. No.
So I have a question. So now it seems to me like, are you actually, so now you're a full-time writer, right? No.
I remember this. I know the answer to this. She told us last time
I know,
that she
but
needs
I think
the
it's
security of a
interesting.
job.
No, it's not even that. It's like, what nudged you into becoming a writer? Because a lot of people may dabble with the idea when they're younger, but they don't follow through. I was just wondering, what was it that gave you the oomph to actually go and continue to hone your craft and then get books published?
Well, I mean, I think it was the combination of, I come from a writing family. So it's one of those things that it's like, you know, if somebody tells me like, oh, you know, writing doesn't work out, I'm like, really? Because right there, you know, it's so, you know, I have experience in seeing it play out in a good way. Now, I did not, for a long time, I didn't want to write because I am a person who really likes security. And, you know, I really dislike not knowing where my paycheck's going to come from, things like that. So I kind of didn't want to for a long time, but it's just kind of like having words in your head, you know, and at first I just wrote them for myself because I wanted something for myself. And then after a while I was like, I don't know, maybe someone else wants to read it. And it's one of those things that, you know, the longer I've done it, the more, I don't want to say that I'm any better at it, but I guess I have a better feel for the process of like, you know, get this thing, get it done, and who to send it to and what to do about it. So it's
do you like, for example, our esteemed guest, Mr. Langan, dedicates a certain amount of time for reading each day, often in the morning before he has to act like chauffeur and cook. So do you like have dedicated reading time? I'm writing time. I mean that you like set aside, this is my writing time right now.
I do now. I was very, very lucky. in May of last year to go part-time at my job. I'm a litigation paralegal, and that's not really normally a part-time thing. But the pandemic was hell. And, I was taking care of a small child with no childcare and working, full-time. And so was my husband. And at the end of that, I was like, so anyway, what do you guys think about me not working all day? And it's actually worked out really well. So I work at my job from 1 to 6. I get to spend more time with my son in the morning, and then I'll usually write for like an hour and a half, most days if I can. So I'm very, very lucky to have that. Yeah. Cause before it was just kind of like, getting 20 minutes in while my husband put him to bed, or, an hour on the weekend or something.
And I think you're setting a really good example for those writers who haven't been published yet, or that are thinking, I don't have time to write. If it's something that you really want to do, you'll make time. And, you're a mom, you had a full-time job, you've got a family, et cetera, but still you've published several books and edited a couple too, I think. So,
yeah, I've edited 3 anthologies. Yeah.
What are those? I was meaning to ask you about that.
So the first one I did was We Are Wolves, which is a charity anthology that I edited with Gemma Amor and Sina Palayo. And then the second one is The Dead Inside, which is a anthology of identity horror that I edited with Sandra Rutan. I think I pronounced it right this time, Sandra. Really sorry. We're friends, and like I was screwing it up for so long. And put out through Dark Dispatch, which I'm very, very proud of that. I was just so blown away by the submissions we got. Really, really happy with that. And then I just finished one called Shattered and Splintered, which is another charity anthology. I did this one with James Sabata. And that was in tandem with we put on a charity event at the Stanley to kick off StokerCon. So that charity anthology, the proceeds for that also benefit the Glen Haven Volunteer Fire Department.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Yeah, it's fun. It's incredibly time consuming.
Yeah. Editing a book is. What kind of horror do you like to watch? Or any kind of horror, or are you more the quiet horror type?
Supernatural across the board.
Across
yeah.
the board, yeah. Okay.
When I'm on Shudder, I go look for that little, go look for the collections and look for the supernatural, because it's not that there aren't good slashers, there totally are, but I love ghosts. I'm kind of like, a terrible ghost story is better than none at all.
Yeah, I don't like slashers except for I like the Scream movies. That's about it. And I like Halloween, but that's about it.
I like Black Christmas. I hadn't seen that until fairly recently, and that was really excellent.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh no,
Yeah.
you didn't.
I saw that by accident as a kid on like USA.
Oh yeah.
Before, like we're talking like, I don't know, I guess 90s or 80s, but I didn't know what it was called. I was just like, oh, what's this? And it scared the shit. That movie scared the shit out of me. It's like, it's a really good movie. It gets under your skin after a while too.
It does. It's so atmospheric too. And I'm a person that loves like holiday horror. I'm all about getting into the season of whatever the holiday is. So like, that's such a great Christmas horror story. Yeah. I love that one. That one's really good.
I like to do like watch the Christmas episodes of horror TV shows, when it's Christmas time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I do that kind of thing. My wife thinks I'm a nerd, and I guess I am, but
aren't we all though? I mean,
yeah, we pretty much
just
are.
been spending all this time finding our nerd community.
And very few exceptions aside, it really is a very supportive community. I'm happy to be a part of it.
I am too. And I'm really excited that we've had some booksellers. I know we've always had librarians and booksellers, as part of it. Sometimes I feel like maybe they don't feel like as much of the community, not I think because of anything we do, but sometimes I feel I'm afraid that people think if they're not like an active writer that they're peripheral, and that's so very not true. There's so many ways to contribute. And, lately just seeing some folks who, work at Barnes and Noble, or the little Boo, Little Ghost bookshop in Toronto that just popped up, and they have, just so much horror, and that's, it's such a joy to see that on shelves.
What? Hey, Pete Raleigh just joined us. Hey, Pete. What do you think success as a writer, what does that mean to you? Like some writers might say, well, financially, if I can do this full time, it means I feel like I've succeeded. Other writers might say something different. What is success as a writer for you? Or is it a combination of things?
Well, I mean, like we said, it's nice to get the paycheck. It is. But to me, it feels successful as a writer when people connect with my characters, or when people connect with a story, and not just, I mean, I love it when people just enjoy it too. Like I'm not writing high level fiction here. I'm not changing the world. I want to entertain. But I just, a short story that I put out through, it's an anthology called A Woman Built by Man. And it's the first story, and it's called Every Woman Knows This. And it's just basically about, the first line is, there's a certain kind of smile that it's not safe to return. Every woman knows this. And that has really kind of hit a target with a lot of people since that came out. And I actually read it at the Stanley event, and people really reacted to it very well. And in a way, because of what that story's about, I kind of hate how many people were like, yep, but on the other hand, I know when I've read something that really speaks to me, it's like I feel seen, I feel less alone, or I feel just very connected, to other readers of that story or the author of it. And so to me, that is what success feels like, is when people feel something about what I've written.
Yeah, I feel very much the same about this and other things that I do. I just had an artist in Alaska. He wrote me and said, while he's painting, he likes to have the show on, and it's helped him get through COVID. And I've had several comments like that. And it's this, you've helped somebody basically, or you've made someone feel connected. Like I'm not the only person in the world who has, who's had this feeling. And then I think also with what you're doing is that, even for a man who's very empathic, and empathy is so important, you're still not a woman, and you haven't gone through these things as a male, typically. And little, things like Every Woman Knows This, that just makes me all that much more aware of what women have to put up with and what they go through and their thought process and so forth.
And that was something too that, so the Dead Inside, identity horror, it's like, what the hell is that? And it was something that I kind of thought about last summer. I never tweet an anthology idea, or you're committed at that point. You have no choice. You will be editing that anthology no matter what.
Right.
So, but I really loved that it spoke to people, because to me, I really do. It's not just some platitude that I tell people. And reading diversely and promoting diverse voices is something that is really important to me. And in large part, it's because I feel like we learn to know each other best by telling our stories and by listening to each other's stories, because, you can have someone shout something on Twitter and it means nothing to you. You're in a fight mode, this person, I don't know them, I'm not going to listen, there's only so many characters, whatever. And if you read someone's story, and in this, what people really put on the page, they bled on it about, the expectations for culture and ethnicity and gender and parenthood and work and, height for males. One of the stories that really, really touched me was one of our authors was he's 5 feet tall. And he was talking about how he had been just mocked for that mercilessly his whole life and how much it affected him as a person. I come from a very little family. My brother is not quite 5'7", and I know how much that affected him. And that's the thing too, is when I feel like there's stories in all of this that I mean, you talk about that empathy. This is like one of the most effective, least confrontational ways to hear those stories and gain that empathy. You know, you don't have someone yelling at you something, you're reading, shit, this is something that trans women go through. You know,
Right.
this is something that a Black woman in America has to deal with, that kind of thing. Sorry, I have a small person who might come make an appearance.
Oh, no, you're fine. You mentioned, you know, I'm writing stories, I'm not changing the world or anything, but what's the line from Hill House that no creature can remain in a state of absolute reality, or something along those lines?
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
first of all, there's that, and secondly, I think I read once, I don't remember where, about Stephen King. You know, when he was younger, he'd hear a song on the radio and go, wow, I thought I was the only person in the world who had this feeling, and it turns out I'm not.
Yeah.
And that, you know, that helps.
It really does.
yeah.
It does.
And
And-
then go ahead, sorry.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I was interrupting you. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that I remembered what I was going to ask earlier, comment on earlier, about writing from a feminist point of view. You're writing from your point of view, and it has been done wrong. Whatever the lesson is, if you beat somebody over the head with it, then you're just going to put them in fight mode. But here's the example I use a lot. In the first season of The Flash, and I've told this on the show before, but the police captain is hurt. He's in the hospital, and his fiance, who's a man, he's gay, wants to visit him, and Barry and Barry's stepfather are there in the hallway too. And the nurse says to the fiance, only family can go in and, you know, talk to him. And Barry's stepfather goes, they're engaged, that makes them family. And the nurse is just like, oh, right, you're right, and lets them in. And it's just this little beautiful, make this normal thing. It's a way to make people think about it in a non-combative way, you might say.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Because I think most of us don't want to cause harm. You know, I think the majority of us.
Pete does, yes.
Yeah. There's always one.
Well, so we've often talked on the show about how comedy and horror are very, very closely related.
Mm.
And some of the things that we touched on here in the last few minutes are really brought out by the fact that, you know, comedians, or as I like to think of them, stand-up philosophers.
I like that. I like that.
They tend to look at the horrible things that are going on in our society and find a way to show that to people with a joke.
Mm.
Where horror writers and films and stories tend to look at the horrible things going on in our society and make it address to our fears and what scares us. And, you know, if you think about the roller coaster ride, that's fun and it's scary. And it's a personal decision on whether you're having a good time or not. And I know where I'm going with this. I swear.
We'll stick with you.
So it's sort of like, you know, yes, like for example, Black Christmas or The Babysitter, these, or, you know, Cabin in the Woods, these are horror comedies. But, you know, what one person finds horrific, the other person finds comedic, and vice versa. But they're actually, this is my dog who's ignoring me right now.
Hi, puppy dog.
This is, you know, a personal point to draw the line, but it's also a time for the writer to make something more poignant to us. And whether they achieve that through comedy or horror or a little bit of both, it's a great success.
Agreed. Yeah. I don't know if you've read Brian Asman's Man, Fuck This House, which has to win an award for like best title.
Best title. Yeah.
You know, it's ridiculous.
It sounds vaguely familiar.
Yeah, and Brian is a super nice guy. I met him at the Ghoulish Festival. And it's a great book. I read it this week. It's very much a comedy, of course, about, you know, and it's like kind of dealing with the trope, the haunted house trope, the middle class family moves in and everything goes to hell in this house, and why don't they leave, and all this kind of stuff. And some of the way he deals with those tropes is hysterical. Like, it's so, you know, and as someone who is in love with that subgenre, it was so great. But it was also like, it wasn't just like an epic movie, you know, parody. It was like, it was taking some of those things, flipping them around a little bit, but also throwing a story in there that really kind of hit a lot of awesome notes. And I mean, that's one that I would definitely, especially when things are really heavy, that's one I would recommend. It's a very quick read.
What's the title and writer again?
Man, Fuck This House, by Brian Asman. But it's really funny because if you go to find it on Amazon, which I did to go rate it, when you try to search that, it just says "Man, Funk This House." It doesn't let you plug that into the search terms for some reason. I don't know, but it is there. And yeah, that's really excellent.
So I'm going to let you get back to your little person. Thank you for talking with us. But I gotta ask you, do you know who The World According to Jay is?
Yes. Oh yeah. Well, of course I do.
I don't. They're watching, they're commenting, and they said, "Hey, look, it's one of my favorite people, Laurel."
Yes, Jay is actually, he is the namesake for the trucker. In Below. He
really?
is, yeah, he's Mads. So yeah. Hi Jay. Thank you.
Well,
for
he's watching, yes. And you're one of his
Also,
favorite people, he said.
What does that say about your relationship to him, that all those terrible things happen? Okay. I'm not trying to play analyst or anything.
Hey, he was Tuckerized. It doesn't matter.
Jay,
you know?
Jay, you might want to watch your back. That's all I'm saying. Okay.
I only kill off people that I like.
So, anything else, guys, before we let Laurel go?
I'm afraid to upset Laurel now.
Yeah.
It could be any John, you know. I kill off the John,
Yeah.
It could be, you know.
Right, sure it could.
You'll never know.
Obnoxious John from New York. Oh,
All right. Well, we're going to chat about some other topics for a little bit. Obviously, you're welcome to stay, but if you want to spend some time with your little boy, then that's fine too.
I don't think I'm going to be allowed to have much more of a reprieve, but thank you all so much for having me on again. I really appreciate it. I always like talking to you guys.
Thank you. And again, the book is Below by Laurel Hightower. It's available in print and Kindle. So yeah. Thank you, Laurel.
All right.
I'll talk to you soon,
guys.
I'm sure. Thank you.
Yep. Have a good one.
You too. All right, Pete.
I'm sorry.
You should be sorry because you saw Men before me. I still haven't seen it. You want to tell us spoiler free tell the audience how good Men is?
So I really enjoyed Men, the movie. To be clear, the movie.
Pete, this is a judgment-free zone.
Not that there's anything wrong with it,
man.
Pete.
I mean, just
First of all, John Langdon,
Relax.
this is not a judgment-free zone.
This is well, when it comes to entertainment, it's not a judgment-free zone. But when it comes to who you love, that's totally fine.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Absolutely.
It's totally fine, and we will judge you about it.
So you really like Men? Go on.
love Men. Men is
okay. Wait, Pete.
What?
What do you think is the most significant feature about Mothman? Since you're talking about men, you missed this part of the discussion.
Oh yeah, the statue in Point Pleasant. Apparently, he's got a really nice butt.
I'm trying to draw a correlation, but okay.
I have never seen Mothman's butt.
I'm right there with you.
Oh, Pete, come on, man.
Once you see it, you will not be able to unsee it.
I'm not going to look it up.
We need to have T-shirts
I
made
don't
up.
have to.
You say that now, but yeah, okay, you won't look at it.
All right, so I want to hear about Men.
So, Men is a sort of interesting film, and it's not cosmic horror. There's a brief sense of cosmicism in it, but it only lasts for about 20 seconds.
Oh, that's okay. We love all kinds of horror here.
It is most definitely folk horror. There is a strong component, and when I say strong component, I mean the entire third act is nothing but body horror.
Oh shit.
And you know,
That might be a no for me.
yeah, I'm sorry.
That's all right. I'm glad you warned me.
Yeah. There's this incredible juxtaposition between the beauty of the natural world so essentially the protagonist, for reasons I can't go into, has to leave London and go into recovery, and she chooses to do so in a country house. That is
The trailer is very eerie without really giving anything away.
right. So she gets to wander around the woods, British woods, and the fields and whatnot, and everything is in bloom. There's beautiful flowers and insects and birds, and there's a
What a wonderful world.
beautiful exploration of the natural world, including the sky and the stars and all that.
Right.
But it is later juxtaposed with not only body horror, but the ugliness of the natural world as well. And this is a core theme of the film, is that there is a juxtaposition. For every beautiful thing, there has to be something ugly. For everything that lives, there has to be something that dies. It is I don't think I'm going to give anything away when I tell you that the Green Man is a core portion of this film.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
But it's juxtaposed with a character that a folklore character, the female version of the Green Man, that is rarely used.
Well, I'm glad I asked you about this, because I was thinking about, it's like $4 to go to a matinee around here and seeing it in the theater. But based on what you told me just now, it sounds like it's a great movie. Just maybe not my kind of movie. I'll probably stream it and turn it off if I have to. But
yeah, I know that you don't like a lot of gore, and you don't like a lot of mutilation.
Right.
There's a good portion, a good amount of that.
Well, my point is, I would hate to get into the theater and find that out. If I'm at
Yeah.
home streaming it, I could just,
Right.
turn it
And
off
you
and
can
watch
pause
something
it and deal with it.
Yeah. Right.
I will say that it has been a long time since I saw it's. I would say, okay, so when I was in college, we watched The Elephant Man as part of a film class. And I probably was the only person who found the Elephant Man a beautiful wonder of horror. It's just so well done, and the horror and awfulness of everything is so well portrayed in that film. I found it stunningly beautiful. And I'm going to say the same thing about Men.
Okay.
The horror of the third act is stunningly beautiful. It's still horrific, but it's gorgeous.
I know that Rick would like to talk about Stranger Things and Obi-Wan Kenobi, right?
Yes.
I haven't seen Obi-Wan Kenobi. I'm a little burnt out on Star Wars, and I probably will watch Stranger Things, but I haven't yet.
Well, Stranger Things is going to be shown in 2 sections for this 4th installment.
Right.
Coming in July, but so far what I saw was very good.
Okay. What about Obi-Wan?
Obi-Wan was great. Much better than Boba Fett.
No. Okay. Well, anybody else? Has anyone else watched Stranger Things yet?
Yes, I've watched all 7 episodes.
Do you agree with Rick? Should I watch it?
So there are 3 or 4 storylines that are going on at the same time
Hmm.
that are paralleling each other, and will eventually come together. Hopper's storyline is interesting, but I think it's a very big deviation from what they've done before in Stranger Things by focusing on adults.
Without having seen Stranger Things 4 yet, it seems to me that probably it could be a subplot that you're like, I'm tired of seeing Hopper. Let's get back to the kids.
Yeah. I think that what I've seen already is it's very interesting because they're basically going backwards and kind of doing a reset and a reboot to their own mythology. And I want to see where it plays out. It's a very interesting idea.
They're doing an homage to a horror film franchise too.
Yes.
Oh, well, that's interesting.
You catch it right away when you see a certain actor.
Yeah.
All right, well, tell me if this sounds familiar. And I'm quoting from an article at The Verge. A detective tasked with investigating the mysterious disappearances of 6 people from a research station in Ennis, Alaska, while Danvers, played by Jodie Foster, is up for the task of figuring out what went wrong near the Solly Arctic Research Station. She and her partner arrive in Ennis just as the region's long winter night and its all-encompassing darkness begins to set in.
So 30 Days of Night, The Thing.
Right, The Thing, yeah.
And a Laird Barron story or 3.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
It's nice to see they're being consistent.
This
There's a couple X-Files episodes buried in there.
Yeah, this is season 4 of True Detective.
Right.
And
Look, if you're going to steal from the best.
yeah, well, it's all new writers and everything. I mean, it's hard to go wrong with Jodie Foster, I always think. You know, and
I don't know. She did the little girl who lived down the lane, and I think it's been all downhill since then.
Oh, come on. Yeah, she was what, 8?
13, I think, but yes, go ahead.
I don't know if the
Wait,
writing.
so wasn't Jodie Foster's first screen appearance in an episode of Kung Fu?
Yeah, I was thinking Kung Fu. She was in Kung Fu.
Really?
She was like 6 or 7. She played a little girl playing the mandolin who thought she saw Kwai Chang Caine kill somebody, but she didn't.
Mhm.
Well, she's you don't sign on to these things without reading the script, and
Right.
so I'm thinking that bodes well for it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Wasn't it Samuel L. Jackson who said, like, he was asked, why are you in so many crappy movies? And he was like, I don't really read the scripts. I'm just like, I need the money. Okay, sure. Snakes on a plane? Why not?
Sure. Well, didn't like Michael Caine for years?
Yes, I was just thinking of that. Yeah, go ahead.
Michael Caine for years was like, nope, I don't do crappy movies. I don't do crappy movies. I don't do crappy movies. And then there was this personal thing that happened, and all of a sudden he made crappy movies because he needed the money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nicolas Cage, same thing.
Yeah,
Well,
no,
for
what I was thinking of is Michael Caine said once, something to the effect of, you try to pick out the best ones and do them, and then but sometimes you got to pick out anything because it pays the rent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right, what do we know about Phil Tippett and Mad God?
Bill Tippett is responsible for some of the most memorable not designs, but making things come to life during the 80s. He's big in the Star Wars original trilogy, Dragon
Jurassic
Slayer, Jurassic Park. Jurassic Park. I actually watched some stuff before we came on air, like just some quick interviews. He did one for Vice. They did like a half-hour show on him. And he thought Jurassic Park, even though he worked on it, was going to end his career because they're going to computers. But he actually turned out being, it didn't. It actually made his career longer. He created, the guys knew how to create stuff on the computer, but they didn't know how to do anything else. So they needed somebody with a stop motion background to make that happen. Like he had created Tyrannosaurus Rex that was like basically like a robot mechanical thing.
Yeah,
And
but he knows how animals move and everything.
Yeah, he was a huge dinosaur fan and had read about him and stuff like that. He actually did those scenes you see in the movie. He did stop motion versions of that. You can find
the thing that he said when he first saw what you're talking about with Jurassic Park and CGI, he said he's like, "Oh my God, I've become extinct," and they use that line in the movie.
Yeah, I mean, he went into a deep depression during that, and they're like, "No, come back. We still need you." So, I mean, if you look up his IMDb, and I think I sent you something earlier that has a list of what he's done.
Huge.
Like when you see the AT-ATs, he made that happen. He designed Jabba the Hutt. When Lucas shot the cantina scene in the original one, he came back. He's like, "There's not enough aliens in it. It doesn't look alien enough." So it was him and like 3 other people that were all stop motion guys, and like, "Hey, come and work for 2 days." And they created all those masks for the background aliens. I mean, he's had a really good career. I think he worked on Temple of Doom too.
One of the things.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Pete.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say he won a couple of Oscars too. Jurassic Park was one. I want to say Empire Strikes Back. No, Dragon Slayer, I think. I don't know. It's one of those, but definitely Jurassic Park.
Pete?
So I can remember when Dragon Slayer came out, and the biologists and ecologists that were just like, "This is an amazing dragon." Vermithrax is just, it looks good. It's everything you want to see in how a dragon would look and fly and behave.
Yeah, and it was a combination of stop motion, his go motion, and then they built like a full size dragon.
Yeah,
I remember like back in the day, HBO used to have, before movies came out, they do those little vignettes with behind the scenes.
Right.
And they'd show you enough to get you like, "Oh, I got to go see this." And they showed you how they had the dragon come out of the lake. And I'm like, that's amazing. I think it's gigantic. So yeah, that's my favorite all-time dragon. It's the one you kind of like, if you grew up in that time, usually you judge other dragons by that one.
Yeah. So, and you can see the influence it had on other film dragons down the way.
Have you guys, I assume at this point you probably have seen the trailer for Mad God?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen it, but the stop motion seem a little old-fashioned.
Well, that's the appeal too.
He's been working on this for 30 years.
Yeah.
It's like he did. That was part of the. I mean, you could read it in the descriptions for like the trailers and the articles that have come out lately. But during that interview, it was kind of like his. He's called it cathartic, where you got to go back and do things like the old way. So this has been an ongoing project for 30 years, and he shelved it for a while because like, I can't do all this by myself. And people in his shop later, when they were like, "Hey, what are you doing?" He was like, "It's this project that kind of failed at. I can't do it." And they're like, "Well, we want to do that." So he started.
They did a Kickstarter.
Yeah, they did the Kickstarter and they helped, and like, it's finally done. But it's been like a labor of love for him.
Well, this looks horrific. From the synopsis I read, from the trailer, horrific as in really good, in my view. I think I read one review where it said this is a place where there is no God, or if there is a God, he's very angry with us. Which, as far as I'm concerned, sounds a bit Lovecraftian. Whether it is or not, this looks really good to me. You're right, Rick, it is old-fashioned, but I think for a lot of people, that's part of the appeal.
It's sort of like watching classic Harryhausen.
Yeah.
It's funny because Tippett actually knew Harryhausen. Like in '68, he met him and kind of like, I don't know, him and some other people kind of like learned from him. They were his hero, or he was their hero, I should say.
Well, speaking of meeting, I sent him a message through Facebook because I'd posted the trailer on the big eZine page, and it got a hell of a lot of views, like, I don't know, 100,000 views or something. So he actually
Wow.
posted on there and said, thanks for sharing it. And so I sent him a Facebook message and said, sorry to bother you, on Facebook, geez, but I can't find an email address, and I just would love to, interview you for the show. He sent me a message back a few days later and asked for my email address. Now I haven't gotten anything yet. I'm sure he's a very busy guy. If I don't hear from him in a week or so, I might, circle back and ask him again. But my point is, everybody keep your fingers crossed and knock on wood or whatever you need to do. So it would be cool to have him on the show.
Yeah.
And
Definitely.
he must have an interest, because he didn't ignore my message. He asked for my email. So that would be really cool.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, Mad God comes out on, I think, June the 16th. Is that right? Let me,
On Shutter, right?
on Shutter.
Yeah.
Yes, that's important. Yeah. Let me see. I wrote it. Yeah, June 16th it comes out. I'll tell you what, in marketing and promotion, you learn when you try to be everything to everybody, then
You're nothing to everybody.
Exactly. You're nothing to everybody. What strikes me about Shutter is they're like, we're a horror channel. That's it. That's it, baby. And they do it really, really well. If you can do one thing really, really well, you're going to attract people who are interested in whatever you're doing. And Shutter, I think, is for what, $6 a month or whatever it is. What a amazing amount of content, and there's more all the time.
Yeah.
And I think I saw someone say, do you have this is like a year ago, but they're like, why don't you, you haven't seen this on anything, and also, why don't you have Shutter? I'm saying it wrong, but you just can't beat it for $5 or $6 a month.
No.
Every Tuesday I check for like new movies.
Yeah.
Clockwork.
Oh, is it Tuesdays that they?
I think
All right.
I watched speaking of Shutter, I can't remember the name of it, but it was a touching ghost love story that I watched the other day. I just put it on for background noise and I got sucked in.
Is it about an apartment?
No, it's about a guy who's renovating a house where.
Okay. I know what you're talking about.
Where
you're such a romantic.
It's almost functionally a sequel to Beetlejuice. It's got that corporate afterlife thing going on.
TBR. Every week now, or we haven't had a show in a couple weeks because I've been sick. But I said, even if I'm bleeding out of my eyes, we're doing a show today. So every show now, I'm doing a TBR list, books for people in the show notes. So here's what we got. First and foremost, I just published Ethics by Michael Sisko. Yeah, I'm gonna get there. We lost John. He must have to do dinner.
He's got to walk the dogs.
Oh yeah, I see that. Okay. Ethics by Michael Sisko. Laird Barron and Livia Llewellyn and Paul Tremblay blurbed this for me and for Sisko, and let's just say they thought it was amazing. So please check it out. Every sale, Sisko is going to make money, and every sale is going to go towards Lovecraft eZine as well. So Michael Sisko is one of those guys who he's so good that he deserves for everybody in the world who reads books to know his name. And unfortunately, he's kind of he's a very deep writer, and but anyway, this is just a really good book. Please check it out. Here's the rest of my list. Howls from the Dark Ages edited by P.L. McMillan and Solomon Force. Now, this is an anthology, obviously, and they did Howl's from something a year or so back. This one is Uncover the Secret Annals of Untold History and these 18 medieval manuscripts. Each tortured scribe will bring you face to face with ancient horrors lurking in cursed castles, wild woodlands, haunted hamlets, and mysterious monasteries. I've got This Thing Between Us by Gus Marino. He was on a while back, and he'll be on again as a guest panelist. Kathy Koja's Dark Factory is now out. Check that out. I haven't got to it yet, but this is some kind of immersive book. I'm actually embarrassed that I can't describe it better, but it's anything she does is really cool. Watching from Behind Glass Eyes by Jeremiah Kleckner. This is on Kindle Unlimited, and it's a collection of particular note is a story called Not a Vampire I read, and I think it's a really interesting take. Pete, I think you might enjoy reading that. It's in Watching from Behind Glass Eyes. I've mentioned Strange Little Horrors by Amy Cross before. I have no way, I don't even know how to get hold of Amy Cross. I've tried, but that said, Strange Little Horrors is also on Kindle Unlimited, and if you read nothing else, read the short story Sitcom. It does a particular theme that I love better than any movie or book I've ever seen. And if you read it, I can't really say anything about it because it gives it away. But if you read it, shoot me an email, lovecraftezine@gmail.com. I'm currently, I haven't done this since the book came out in '98, but I'm currently rereading / listening to Bag of Bones by Stephen King. It's quite a bit scarier than I remembered. It's a good book. And last but not least, the world has gone through, Pete, I think you'll agree, in the last couple of years, the world has gone through some monumental changes in so many ways. And I think, last but not least is Winnie the Pooh is now in
Public domain.
Public domain. Thank you.
And you could have done something noble with this.
Nope.
So we have a book called an anthology called The Call of Pooh-Thulu. Yes, really. There it is. And Pete has a story in there. I posted about this on the big page now, and I'm like, okay, are 220,000 people going to tell me you're an idiot for posting this, or are they going to, go the other way? Well, they went the other way big time. I mean, they're nuts about this book, Pete.
Yeah. So there's that
quite. It's quite
scene
fun.
in High Fidelity.
Yeah.
You know, in the movie I'm talking about with
John Cusack.
John Cusack, and they've gotten a hold of the tape that the two punk kids that steal from the store have made,
Mm-hmm.
and they're listening to it, and they're sitting there going, "This is really, really good." And I didn't want to do this story. I told the editor, Neil, I'm not doing this.
Yeah, sure you did.
I did. I'll find.
Woe is you.
And then they drove a dump truck full of money up to my back door.
I figure.
And
you're buying the first round.
And I was like, yeah, okay, so fine. And I started writing it, and all of a sudden, all the secret Lovecraftian things that exist in the 100 Acre Wood just came pouring out. And I've read some of this, and it's really, really good. Christine Morgan's in here. She's one of my favorite writers. The celery at the threshold. It's just I love this book, and
Hey, sometimes you just want to have fun, right? It doesn't
Right,
always have to
yes.
be deep and
right.
intellectual.
Lee
And,
Clark Zump's Back to the Black Bog. It's The Very Black Goat by Christine Morgan. What's really fun here is that Carmen Serra, I'm about pronouncing that right, did the illustrations for this, and he pretty much
right. Yeah, it's got illustrations throughout the book.
Yeah, he
Right.
nailed the style from the original books.
Night, Matt.
And it's just so much fun. And I'm just really, really surprised. I passed on, he asked a couple of years ago, he asked me to do a James Bond story because James Bond entered, and I passed on that. I tried to pass on this, but then, it just.
And then your brain started working. I know you.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So it's available now, isn't it?
Yeah. The problem is it's really hard to find. If you do a search for Call of Cthulhu on Amazon, something's wrong with the.
Actually, whether you're watching this on YouTube or you're listening to it on Spotify or wherever later, I've got a link to it in the show notes. So you don't even have to worry about searching for it.
Good.
Yeah. I got a link to
Rick, did you want
to
say something?
You've also heard about the movie coming out. It's going to be called.
Yes. Is that Blood and Honey?
Blood and Honey.
What?
Yeah.
Winnie the Pooh is a serial killer.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yep.
Okay. Hey, I'm reading The Pallbearers Club by Paul Tremblay. And guys, this book is very, very different in the way that it's written. It's really, really good. Anything Paul writes is good, obviously, but this one is just sort of, it's kind of meta, and it's just, I can't explain it. But I think I've got a link to that too. If not, just Pallbearers Club on Amazon or wherever. But it comes out on July the 5th. And I always say pre-ordering helps the author and the publisher, to know how popular a book's going to be. And so if you're at all interested in this book, go ahead and pre-order it. Don't wait till July 5th. Speaking of Paul, for those of you who don't know, I have a Patreon. Appreciate everybody who is a Patreon, because without it, quite honestly, I couldn't do this anymore. And I appreciate that. We did a Patreon podcast recently. I did one with Paul and with Bridget Brenmark and with Ben Handelman. We talked about the work of Stephen King, with particular emphasis on the multiverse of Stephen King. And that was a lot of fun. So you can listen to all these Patreon podcasts just for $5 a month. And then there's other levels where you get more. So just Google Lovecraft eZine Patreon, or actually you can type in Lovecraft eZine Patreon.com. It'll take you to Patreon. So, all right, I have to know this. What the hell? I'm too old for this world. What the hell is an NFT? And why is Seth Green mad about this?
I don't exactly know what an NFT is, but I know he had one.
Non-fungible token or something like that. It's like if you have a JPEG and suddenly you're the only one that can own it, it just sounds dumb.
If I'm getting this right, he had an NFT for a character.
Non-refundable token, thanks.
That he was gonna use for a show, and somehow somebody stole it, I think. So now he can't
somebody stole it
show.
And then sold it to somebody who's refusing to give it up.
So yeah, his show can't go forward because he doesn't have the thing. So that's what that is.
I don't think I understand this world very much.
Yeah,
you're muted, Pete. I don't get it.
Imagine it as a unique piece of art that cannot be reproduced.
Oh, that would explain it, huh?
And therefore,
Oh, so that's why he can't do the show.
right.
But I'm not so sure that the law is going to be on the side of this buyer because, but
It's
either
it's
way, it's
all
going to be a
very-
big pain in the ass for Seth Green.
Yeah, it's all very, very weird. I guess there were those people, there was a conglomerate that bought the rights to Jodorowsky's Dune. I'm sorry, no, they bought a copy of Jodorowsky's Dune, and they believed that gave them the rights to it, and they were going to do a non-fungible token on it. And it's all very weird.
And meanwhile, you have Seth Green on
Yeah.
Twitter going, please give this back to me.
Right.
I mean, I kind of feel sorry for the guy. Somebody stole it from
Hey,
him.
do you remember when that guy was it Martin Schreckle? He was the
Farmer Bro guy.
yeah.
Oh, was this the
farmer-
guy? Yeah, I remember him.
Okay, so he bought like a Wu-Tang Clan
Yeah.
record,
Like
and it's the
$10.
only one in existence. It's got like music that only he had.
Yeah.
It's
okay.
kind of like that. It's kind of like a piece of art that only you and you alone can have. And depending on what other people think of the art and the artist, it has value that you can leverage for funding.
Well, if this goes to trial or even settles, everyone's going to be looking at this as a precedent.
Yeah.
And we've already given this more attention than it deserves. Okay, so if you're watching on YouTube, or not, either way, I've got a YouTube channel. Those of you watching live are probably aware of this since you're watching on YouTube. But I've got the playlist of the Lovecraft eZine podcast, this podcast, and I've also got a playlist the past few months of old time radio shows. I've listened to those most of my life. So every Tuesday night, are you dying or what?
No, I'm not dying, but I caught a lot of fish today and my arm is cramping up.
Oh, sorry. Where was I? Oh yeah, old time radio shows. We do it live on Tuesday nights. You can listen Tuesday nights at 9 Eastern. You can listen and chat live with us as you do, but you don't have to. And it's actually taking off more than I thought it would. It was just, I'm picking the best of old time radio that I've been listening to for 40 years. And it's just something I love, so I want to share it with people, sort of. But it's really taken off. The last one, I mean, we had 15 people watching it live, Mike, right? The last Tuesday.
Yeah.
And then since then, 3,100 people have seen it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So I'm really glad that so many people are, listening to old time radio. I'm not sure what I'm going to do this Tuesday night, but I'll pick something good. And then the other playlist that's real new is that I've got on the YouTube channel is horror short stories. Read. So the very first one was Soren Narnia from Knife Point Horror. He's a friend of mine. He read The Festival by H.P. Lovecraft. He's got such a great voice, as you guys all know.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be just a Lovecraft playlist. In fact, mostly it's not going to be. The second one is
Snuff.
Snuff Movie by Michael Menace. And that's read by Lehman Kessler, another great audio reader. And then the one that I'm putting up this week is a story by Jeffrey Ford called Sit the Dead. And it's read by John Paget. So this is a really nice playlist with great stories read by some really great readers. And after that, in a week or two, next is a Laird Barron story. So I'm just saying all that to say, hey, check this out. This is free. Just something else I'm doing, like the old time radio shows. If you are a Patreon, I will say that you get those stories a week or two before the public, which is nice. But I mean, Mike, you're a patron and you listen to
Yeah.
those stories. They're really well done, aren't they?
Yeah,
These
absolutely.
guys. Yeah. So, so there's that. You guys got anything else? I've got a few things, but I can save them for next week since we're getting low on time here.
Do you want to talk about our secret project?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I can't. It's a secret.
Okay. Then we can talk about Batman Unburied.
All right, we'll talk about secret project next week.
You can talk about it now if you want to. Or do you want to? Yeah, let's talk about it next week.
All right, let's talk about it next week.
All right. Are you guys listening to Batman Unburied on Spotify?
Yes.
All right. Really good. I really like it. But now Batman's back. I don't want to give anything away. And I'm having a hard time with Batman's voice. It
He's
almost
got the-
sounds like a parody, somebody doing a parody of Batman's voice.
When I heard the voice, I kind of was like, it's the son of Bale. He's got that.
Yeah.
Give me the trigger.
I'm
Give me
Batman.
the trigger.
Riddler, I don't care what you say. It's just like that. I'm like, oh man, everything else about this show is so good. How they
That's my.
and this guy's a
only-
great actor. I mean,
Yeah, I've totally enjoyed it. Like, even the first one, I'm like, okay, I don't want to spoil it for anybody who hasn't started yet. Like, okay, I don't know where it's going, but I enjoy it. And
Right.
then you get to that point, I'm like, okay, Batman's back, and then it's like, oh, we have a voice. I don't know if it's the one I would have picked, but yeah. Besides that, I can look past it, but yeah.
I don't know. I'm having a hard time with it. I was enjoying it up till now. But we'll see. I don't know. I'll give it another try. Maybe last but not least, anybody seen Love, Death, Robots? Alan Baxter's episode, directed by
Yes.
Phil Gillott. Alan Baxter's a friend. Philip Gillott's a friend. I haven't seen it yet. How is it? I'm sure
Very
it's
good.
great.
It's very good.
What's it about?
It's in
Uh,
Afghanistan, and a commando group enters a cave that brings them down to a secret temple.
Ooh, okay.
And there are Lovecraftian denizens.
Mayhem. Oh, one thing I said I would talk about, maybe we'll start talking about now and maybe talk about it some more next week, but favorite antiheroes. You guys have any?
Yes.
In movies and TV, not books.
Before we get into that,
Yes, sir.
just on Love, Death, and Robots,
Hmm.
there are 3 stories by Joe Lansdale.
Oh,
And
really?
One, The Tall Grass, is very Lovecraft and faithfully adapted. It's
Okay.
sort of, it was done about 6 months before Stephen King and Joe Hill wrote In the Tall Grass.
Oh, I hate that story.
Well, it's called The Tall Grass, and it has a similar setting, but it's more straightforward.
Okay.
The other in this season of Love, Death, and Robots, the other episode you should be looking out for is Swarm.
Haven't seen that one.
I've never seen any episodes of Love, Death, Robots.
This one's in Love, Death, and Robots. It has R-rated violence and sometimes X-rated sex.
Yes. But Swarm is an adapt.
None of those. Well, the violence gets pretty graphic near the end of Alan's story.
Yes. Swarm is an adaptation of a Bruce Sterling story. I've cited it as one of my favorite cosmic horror stories of all time.
Oh, well, all kidding aside, we kid each other a lot, but your opinion means a lot to me, so I'll check that out.
Yeah, it's really good. It's a really good adaptation. And if you haven't read the story, seek it out. I think it's in Crystal Express.
Is it okay to go straight to the
Yeah, it's a pretty damn good adaptation.
Okay.
So
Hey, okay, so DeBronzo, who's your anti-hero?
The poster boy for me would be Snake Plissken, with a notable mention in Napoleon Wilson from Assault on Precinct 13.
Good.
I mean, do you want me to say why or just which ones they are?
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
Just a brief one.
We'll
Is
go
like,
another 5 minutes and then we'll probably.
I'll make it quick because I know maybe it was Alan or somebody asked like, what's the criteria for what an anti-hero is versus a hero? Somebody had asked. And it's
Sometimes
just like
it can be a fine line, and sometimes it's not.
Well, like for Pliskin, he does all this stuff not because it's the right thing to do or it's a good thing. It's to save his ass. At the end of the day, he's about him, and there's maybe one scene where you get a little humanity out of him where if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. They're on the bridge and Maggie's there and the Duke is chasing him. He's like, come on, come with me. And then she doesn't. And she doesn't exactly meet a good end. And then you get to the end and he's got the tape. And, he asked the president, I just want to know how how do you feel about all these people that died to get you out of there? And he gives like this stock asshole answer, like, I want to thank them and their families. And, he gives them the tape for the meeting. And then, as you're walking away, something else plays. He just doesn't get, he doesn't give a shit, but it's, Napoleon Wilson's like that too. He's a death row inmate. He killed a bunch of people. He's not sad that they killed him, but they had him coming, but you're still rooting for this guy. So it's just
the line between anti-hero and villain can be a little blurry too.
Yeah, they're not
Nice.
white knights. It's just like, it goes both ways. They could be a bad guy, but there's something there that you're like, it's attractive or draws you to that character.
Actually, I kind of cheated. I've got 3. There's a lot, but I've got 3, and I do have one from books. But Susie Toller from Wild Things. Of course, it could be argued she's a villain, but this is a movie that is a really good neo-noir movie disguised as a trashy teen film. It's a lot deeper than that. Raymond Reddington on the Blacklist. You guys seen the Blacklist? No?
yeah, I've seen a couple episodes.
Okay. And then my book guy, which I didn't even think about it, but is Corwin from the Amber Chronicles. Laird and I talked about this, like in the first book, he and his brother, they're trying to take the throne of Amber, and he's like, they gather all these armies, and he's like, we were like gods to them, and a lot of them died and everything, and I felt kind of bad about it, but whatever, that's the kind of attitude he has. And then in the next book, The Guns of Avalon, here's a quote: "In the mirrors of the many judgments, my hands are the color of blood. I sometimes fancy myself an evil which exists to oppose other evils. And on that great day of which the prophets speak, but which they do not truly believe, on the day the world is utterly cleansed of evil, then I too will go down into darkness swallowing curses. Until then, I will not wash my hands, nor let them hang useless." Rogers Lazen, he was a hell of a writer. So, but we can continue this discussion next week when we got more people here. Anything else, guys, before we knock off? No?
I'm sorry that I inflicted
Cthulhu.
2 Bigfoot movies on people this week.
Oh, that's right. Oh, that's right.
It's DeBronzo's fault.
Yeah,
It is.
just real quickly explain this, and then we'll
So
go.
I guess it's almost a year ago now, I watched, was it Lamageddon? And for fun, I messaged the eZine private chat group my running commentary
Yeah.
of this horrific film. And
Bet DeBronzo made you watch.
Horrific in all the
DeBronzo
wrong
made me
ways.
watch. And
Rick?
apparently,
It was horrific in all the wrong ways.
yes,
Yeah.
apparently, this has tickled the fancy of a number of people. And when I say number of people, I mean two.
Oh,
Michael
no, we're gonna get the word
DeBronzo
out.
and Bridget Brenmark.
We're your biggest fans.
And they have now basically, they send me, I am their experiment, and they send me movie sign.
Well, we have to know whether a movie's good before.
Oh, no. There's no doubt.
Oh,
None
no,
of the
that's
movies they
true,
send me to
that's
watch
true.
are good.
Yeah, there's no point in sending them a good movie.
Yeah, the running commentary's fun. Annoying Pete is fun.
Yeah.
You know what I should do later tonight? I'll go back on the show notes here, and I'll put the links to those two running commentaries that you sent to me, DeBronzo,
Okay.
so that other people can enjoy them as
And
well.
I guess this is the natural outgrowth of the fact that I watch stupid movies.
You've only yourself to blame. Yeah, we're
And
blaming the victim big time on this.
rather than just screaming at the film myself, I can, and the no hearing nobody, I can scream at DeBronzo and pretend that somebody cares.
We do care, but not for the reasons that you hope we do.
I understand that.
And I have to say, I think DeBronzo is, he's getting he's high on the power of doing this.
Yeah.
I am
What'd
so
you say?
proud. I am so proud of my work.
Call me sir, god damn it.
You come into my house and you want to steal my baby Bigfoot?
Talk to me, cousin. Talk to me. Tell them the names of the movies you watched 2 days consecutively.
So
Yeah. And I'll have
Oh.
this on the show notes later.
last night I watched The Legend of Boggy Creek Part 2. The Legend Continues.
Yes.
And then the previous night it was, what was it called?
Night of the Demon.
Night
Not
of
the
the
good
Demon.
one. Not
Not
the good
yet.
one.
There's
No.
more than one.
Yeah,
There's
it's a
4.
popular title. Yeah.
Wow.
This
Yeah.
this
Is
is
this the Ed the guy who did Planet Night from Outer Space one?
No.
this is a 1980 killer Bigfoot movie.
Yes.
With,
Which had a surprising amount of male nudity in it for 1980.
Really?
Yeah, including a death by, severance.
Oh,
yeah.
oh, ow. Ow.
Yeah.
Just because the guy was taking a piss on the side of the road. Don't do that in a Bigfoot movie. Unspoken.
You don't piss in Bigfoot country. You hold it until you get through.
You just see this poor bastard get off his bike. He's taking a leak. You see the hand come up. You see everything. So you can check religions in the whole 9. And I'm like, it's gold.
Yeah, it's a really fun commentary,
Yeah.
So
For
I'll do
us.
that. I'll do that link later. If you're watching tomorrow or the next day or a year from now, the links are probably already there. So it better be.
I gotta walk
Anyway.
my dog.
What?
I gotta walk my dog. I'll talk to you guys later.
All right. See you, buddy. Thanks.
Night.
Again, thanks to all the Patreons. Rick, DeBronzo, Pete, thanks for
Thanks
being
for having
here.
me.
Good to see you, buddy. Good to see you, Rick. And thanks everybody for watching. And we'll see you next week.